Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for another edition of BlackInc.tv, where our mission is to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs to think bigger and go for it. And that's exactly what our next guest has been doing for quite a while. My goodness, Mr. Antonio Barnes. He is the CEO of Frigio out of Atlanta, which is a digital freight marketplace of refrigerated logistics. He's also an MBA candidate of the illustrious MIT School of Management out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. He's been in the Air Force. Oh my goodness. Antonio, welcome to BlackInc.tv. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Tell us about yourself, man. Where you're from, how you grew up, and what was some of the inspiration for you to really, kind of think big and go for it, man.
Yeah, I think even at a young age, I was always encouraged to work hard and go for my dreams. And the women in my family were very encouraging of me very early on in my life. My mother, my aunts, and my uncles were the disciplinarians in my family. Came from a family of men that served in the military. So serving in the military is not unique to me or to any of the younger men in my family. All our forebears did it. And so as a child, I bounced around a lot, but settled in Columbus, Georgia, where I went to middle school and high school, and was in JROTC and all of that good stuff, and attended Howard University on the Air Force scholarship. And after that, spent some time in banking and working in banking, and the sector that I covered was logistics. So total, I have, over 25 years experience in the logistics market. First half of my career as a banker and second half of my career as an owner operator. And after I left banking, I found what we call a 3PL, a third party logistics provider, and I bought it. It was a company that was emerging from bankruptcy, so it had seen better days. It had a small fleet of trucks and a couple of warehouses, and we repositioned the company, and I exited that opportunity in 2019. And then I did something really stupid right after that, as I went into a joint venture with a major air freight company based out of California, where we would go after kind of defense contracts and provide logistics services to support the warfighter. That didn't go well, and I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And while I was studying and doing research at MIT, the first day at MIT, they tell you to find a big problem to solve. And one of the big problems I saw in all of my kind of, machinations in logistics was that, probably the toughest part of the logistics market is refrigerated and cold chain management. And it stands to reason, right? Because if there are any delays or any issues around cold chain management, you lose inventory, right? Once food spoils, you can't unspoil it, right? Once biological samples go bad, you can't use them in experiments. You can't use them in clinical trials. You can't use, those pharmaceuticals, take those pharmaceuticals to the market. So there are extreme consequences for mismanagement of cold chain inventories. So I wanted to attack that problem head on. And one particular customer stood out to me that really brought all these things to the forefront. I was at a pet food company out of California. They were shipping product across the country into the Atlanta market to put on the shelves in Petco. And if you've ever been to a Petco, they sell really fancy pet food, right? But if you go back to the coolers in Petco, they sell the really, really fancy pet food, right? It's like human grade, anybody can eat it, right? And what we found is that the company was losing inventory mostly because the bags were showing up at the Costco distribution center, and they had swollen to 3 times their initial packaging volume. And so that's a clear indication of heat exposure. And, a lot can happen, in a 5,000-mile journey across country, right? You're traveling through deserts, you're traveling through mountains, and truckers are stopping and taking breaks and taking naps. And, they might not always restart those units to make sure those temperatures are set properly. So there's a lot of risk associated with shipping high value product for long distances. So that's Frigio in a nutshell. So all of that experience led to me kind of building this digital platform.
That is incredible. I want to take you back a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned you landed in Columbus, Georgia, and hey, I myself spent a little time there, when I was in the infantry.
Oh yeah, it's home of the infantry.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
oh yeah. Home of the Army, and oh
Yep.
my goodness, the home of the Special Forces. I mean, as you know,
75th Ranger Division, all that good stuff. Yep. That's how I came up. I was trained by those very men. My uncle was infantry, and my parents were infantry, and my high school.
My father too.
My high school ROTC instructors were both Fort Benning retirees. As a matter of fact, one of my high school instructors was a former Command Sergeant Major of the 75th Ranger Regiment. So I had a lot of really disciplined training and mentorship early on in my life, and I still benefit from that to this day. Even in my management style, I still benefit from that.
I was gonna ask you, if that still has an impact on the way your overall success.
Yeah, I still wake up early. I'm still an early riser. I'm up at 5:30 a.m. But I'm quick to bed too. I'm usually in bed by 8:30. At night as well. But I still try to live a very disciplined lifestyle personally, and that allows I think my talents and skills to really rise to the top. In my business dealings, because I'm always well prepared when I go in different situations, and making sure that I'm adding as much value as possible with everyone that I come into it, everyone that I interact with.
And what is your inspiration? Where does it come from? We all have those moments in our life where we decide, this is it. Can you maybe talk about one of those moments where you drew a line in the sand and you were like,
I'm going to go for it. Yeah,
this is it.
Oh, for sure. So it was probably 2003, 2004, when I was kind of mid-career and trying to figure out, how I'm going to take, my professional life to the next level. I always felt in my heart of hearts that I was capable of so much, but I wasn't really realizing, that in my real life. And I read a book by Reginald Lewis. It's called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it changed my perspective on everything, right? It made me realize what's possible. And if you just get prepared and you connect with the right people and you seek out the right opportunities and you apply yourself, you assert yourself, that, you'll get a different level of results. If you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting, right? So you got to do something different to get something different, right? So that's when I just started really, really becoming more self-reliant and assertive and asking for what I wanted. And there's a way to ask for things, right? Mm-hmm. And really following, my passions and what I really want to do. And it's served me well so far.
Wow. You briefly talked about your time as an investment banker. Yep. I looked at your background, and turns out that you had quite a bit of success in M&A, investment banking. I mean, you yourself bought and sold companies. You talked briefly about the company you bought out of bankruptcy. What was that like, man?
Harder than it looked
for the employees. When you first when you first walked in, and I mean, what was that whole thing like?
Yeah, well, so when you take over an organization, you're not just taking over, the mechanisms of that organization, right? You're not just taking over the structure of the organization, but you're inheriting the politics of that organization. You're inheriting the culture of that organization. And that, when you view it through those lenses, things get a bit more complicated, right? What are the power struggles already existing in those organizations? Where are the points of friction, right? Where are the technical limitations? Where are the technical opportunities? Where are the financial limitations? Where are the financial opportunities? Where are the talent limitations? Where are the talent opportunities? And once you really start to dig in, you realize that, hey, maybe we need to automate these processes. Maybe we need to reassign these people into these roles, and really more closely define, the scope of their efforts. And that's a process too, because people are used to doing what they're doing. They're used to using the tools they use. And when you have an organization like a 3PL, that's both warehousing and transportation, you got the indoor stuff and you got the outdoor stuff, right? And trucker culture is very different from warehouse culture. You know, what happens on the road when truckers are on their own at, 2 a.m. on the road, it's very different from what, the forklift driver's doing at 2 a.m. Trying to get a load ready to be put on the back of a truck. So you have to manage those things and set expectations. And sometimes you have to redefine what the standards are. And sometimes the easiest way to do that, I found, was to, give people better tools, right? And reignite that fire and the passion and their interest in doing their jobs. And sometimes that's, hey, let's move us out of this dusty, dark warehouse into some Class A warehousing facilities that are better customer facing, but also provide better break room facilities and offices for your employees. So they're more excited about coming to work. They're more comfortable at work and don't mind staying a little later sometimes if that's what it takes to get the job done, right? Or maybe moving into an office space where there are more food options at lunchtime. Right? Things that matter to people, that give them some, not just a way to work, but a better work life. And so, I put some effort and focus into those things.
Wow. It's obvious talking with you that you are, an incredible leader. The way you communicate, the way you can inspire with your vision. And speaking of an incredible vision, I mean, Frigio, wow. I mean, especially now at a time where we're having so many challenges in the global logistics.
Absolutely.
Man, oh my goodness. I mean, the technology, I mean, do you foresee maybe licensing the technology to maybe bring more of the needs of the people in real time where it's needed, the most?
Yeah, we're exploring, a lot of options as a fairly new company with high growth potential. We're exploring, several strategies to really scale our model, and not just scale in terms of size, but scale in terms of service offerings, right? What does our product roadmap look like? Where we start might not be where we finish.
I want to be very respectful of your time, and before you leave us, is there maybe a couple of things that you can provide to the audience, to hey, inspire them as we've been inspired?
Yeah, I would say to everyone, just look at your everyday life, look at the things that you're good at, look at the things that you have experience doing, find a big problem to solve. It all, solutions come from problems, not from building a solution that's looking for a problem, but find a problem and build a solution.
Wow, really appreciate that very much, and really very much appreciate you taking the time. Once again, Antonio Barnes. That's all the time we have for today on BlackInc.tv. I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile here on the bottom of the page. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Thank you to everybody, and thank you again for our guest, Antonio. We'll see you next time on BlackInc.tv.